All good.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to round 4 of Open Wheel for Amateurs 2023 Season 3, the Belgian Grand Prix here at Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps, or to keep it brief, Spa. This race is brought to you by Ninja Botanicals and AlienAwards.net. We've got a 22-lap feature, followed by a 16-lap sprint at this long 7-kilometer circuit. Last round saw Nick Paletti earn a double win, capped off by a thrilling sprint race to the line, beating Zach Nurnberger by less than a tenth of a second. In the B-Class, Stephen Thompson brought home a 4th and 3rd overall to top the field. The overall points lead is held by Paletti with a huge 30-point gap on Zach Nurnberger behind, and Nurnberger himself, who is defending the B-Class lead, 20 points ahead of the aforementioned Stephen Thompson. I'm rejoined in the booth again after a short absence by my co-host Aaron Claybaugh. Aaron, this is a long track with plenty of parts to get right and wrong. Where do you think it is that the most important section for lap time exists?
Yeah, excited to be back. I think the big lap time that's going to come with these F3 cars, just because they are so toe dependent, is going to be right after El Rouge, the Camel Straight. I think you're going to see a lot of passes get set up going into that corner at the end of that Camel Straight. So I think we're going to see a lot of action there, and probably a lot of action going down Blanchimont into the final chicane. So really excited and looking forward to seeing what these drivers can bring tonight to this track.
Yeah, Adrian Garcia Vigil here, pictured on screen, had a good practice time. He is out here in qualifying, however. Whatever he gets here won't quite matter. He does have an end-of-line penalty, actually from 2 races ago, but stewards unfortunately forgot last race at Monza, so he's serving it here today. So it'll be interesting to see where he places as far as qualifying pace, but regardless, he will be starting from the pit lane.
Yeah, I mean, his goal right now is just to make a statement, and he's making a nice statement with that new paint on his car. Ditched the Fernando Alonso, running that nice red and green Castrol paint. Looks really good on that car.
Yeah, a couple new paints today at the very least. Paul Boyle here in a new, he said he's bringing McLaren level upgrades with his McLaren-themed paint, although it is the old, kind of Golf livery sense, so a little bit old there, but he's keeping it, trying to make some moves in the Liberty. He is 4th overall on the standings, but he does have a pretty enormous gap to Nicholas Paletti in first right now.
Yeah, once drop weeks come in, though, I mean, that could bring Paul back in. I think Paul's main issue this season has just been getting caught up in, a lot of lap 1 incidents and restart incidents. And I think if he can hopefully cut down on some of those tonight, I think he could be really in this title contention with Paletti. He's just got to minimize those mistakes, and not all of them have been his own doing.
Yeah, if you look at the safety points, which we talk about it a lot, about how important it is. If you look at the safety point count between those two, Nicholas Paletti, who just put in the first time on the board, he has 22 safety points on the season. Paul Boyle, collectively, between all 3 races, only 3.
Yeah, and that adds up very quick. I mean, that's why Paletti is so successful in a lot of our series here in Pony Express, is he knows how to keep it clean, and those points carry through. They don't get dropped, so it's a vital thing to have, as we see Real has gone quickest so far.
Yeah, Real fastest time, although it does look like Adrian Garcia is setting up to have a fastest lap. Again, starting for the pits regardless, but that's 3 purple sectors and a green. We'll see what time he puts in here at the end, but this is a pretty storming lap here for his first hot lap.
Yeah, this is going to be really strong right here. He might break into the 211s. We'll see. Not quite, but he jumps. Oh, he must have had an incident or off track or something. It looks like his lap didn't go through.
Yeah, that's probably a valid thing to bring up there as of right now, because off tracks is going to be a thing at this track. There's so many corners where it's pretty strict track limits, especially on the outside of a lot of the turns. You've got No Name Corner, you've got Pujan, you've got the exit of Le Fania. The entire center section of this track has a lot of that off track capability, and it's one that these drivers have to keep in mind of. Keep in mind when they're doing their safety point preservation.
Yeah, I have a feeling not many drivers will be coming out of here tonight with any safety points, but I've been wrong before, but we'll see. But right now, I think a lot of these drivers are just getting banker laps in, as we see Ken Huber gets his first lap put on the board there. Pretty good, strong showing. In fact, he runs the same exact lap time as Paletti down to the 1,000th.
Yeah, good lap for driver here in currently second. He has had some really strong pace during this season, but has had a lot of things undo some of his efforts. Of course, the chief reason at a Red Bull Ring being a total internet disconnection. So hopefully able to kind of avoid those kind of issues today. Paletti there rejoins the top, now breaking into those 11s with the 2:11.8. Still a couple laps for these guys to go.
Yeah, just to touch on that Ken Huber thing, I mean, 11th in points, and that does not show at all the kind of pace he's had. He should be up there, battling in the top 3, top 5. And I think we'll see that again here tonight. I think he'll have a very strong showing here tonight. But as you said, Paletti really making a statement so far as we see Steve Cube jumps up to 3rd.
Okay, good time. As you can see, top 6 all pro drivers. As we are in round 4, the only drivers eligible to be promoted are anybody who has missed a race already this season, which I think just a couple guys that we're looking at, but obviously nobody in the top 35% that's not already in A as is. As a Vihil there moving his way to 2nd. So despite it being a very long track, we've got the top 9 now within 7/10.
Yeah, that makes me really excited for the race. The fact that the times are this close right now, I think we're going to see a very competitive race once the toe falls into this. I think, no one's going to be able to run away with it, which will be great.
Christopher Craig, another improvement for himself, up to 6th place. So now it's another driver within that 7/10 gap, like I said, moving his way up. Seeing a lot of yellow times out there, with the exception of Ken Huber, who's got a few greens. Let's see if he's able to improve on his current 5th place position.
Yeah, the magic number right now is 5th. So any of the drivers that haven't qualified yet, Christopher Craig or Tony Watson, trying to get to 5th if they want to make it to A class. So Christopher Craig very close right now, and I believe that's going to be an off track, and he decides to pull off there.
Luckily, though, on that previous lap, it was a valid lap. Made his way into 2nd place. One of just 3 guys now in the 11s. And he was just a couple hundreds ahead of Adrian Garcia Vihil there. Or 100, sorry.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to see many more improvements. We see Daniel Barnett setting a couple personal bests here. But other than that, mostly yellow on the screen right now.
Paletti there putting in... Wow. A purple lap with no purple sectors. Only one sector was green, so it goes to show the consistency. I mean, sure, 4 of those sectors were slow, but they must have just been almost exactly what he had done previous. So a slight improvement for him there at the front of the field.
Yeah, Paletti's giving them the old Dennis Diaz Calgar treatment here tonight. Just flat out flying. We'll see if he can keep that up in the race pace.
DQ Bay time in there, not an improvement. However, in that 5th place spot, it's a good position for him. Couple more guys still out on track, putting in time. Paul Boyle, an improvement there, up to 6th place from 10th to 6th. So continuing that closeness that we've got in this field.
Yeah, let's keep an eye on Christopher Craig here, trying to qualify into A class. He does have one personal best on this lap. We'll see what it looks like after he gets through this last sector here. I don't know if he's going to have enough this lap or not.
Yeah, he's not driving full speed,
no,
so I think he ran out of time.
He ran out of time, yep, that'll get you.
All right, so we will be, well, I guess we don't have to, no one qualified in the top 35%, so we don't have to worry about AB. Everyone is in the right position, so we can just get ready to watch the start of this race here. And Nicholas Paletti is our pole sitter yet again for this event.
Fingers crossed we can get our first standing start of the season without a red flag on the first lap. That would be awesome. We've come close a couple times. I think the real concern will be going and down into turn 1 here if we see any Fernando Alonso type crashes or something.
Yeah, turn 1 obviously has the capability for being an issue. Lacombe chicane at the end of the Kimmel Straight has a potential, but after that, it's hard to really do a lot in that whole middle sector. Hard to do a lot of racing. And so maybe we'll see some spread out during that section. We've got a few more guys gridding up. And Nicholas Paletti here on pole position for this race. he's going to be on the right side here, as it is a right-hand turn to start out. So he'll be right ahead of Ken Huber there, who's not yet joined the grid. And then Vahil qualified third, but that position will be empty as he will be starting from the pit lane.
Yep, Letty has a really good line going down into turn one. Sometimes the pole sitter's on the outside, but he has the inside here, and that'll be really good for him.
As we wait for these last couple guys to join, Ken Huber still not in the grid. He's only got a few more seconds left. I have to wonder what's going on.
And of course, Adrian will be starting from the pits here, so don't have to worry about him, but that's probably what the time...
1 red, 2 red, 3, 4, 5. Lights out, and they are away. Nicholas Paletti leads the field. He's going to have no competition down to turn 1 as 2 and 3 are not there. Back behind, now Dan Real's made his way to second on the inside.
So far,
Spinning
so good.
from Paul Boyle and Steve Cubay. A little bit of looseness there from that was the new paint of Rich
contact.
Curry, I think.
The Nürnberger. And I don't know who the other driver... It's one of the Castro cars. He got into him just a tiny bit there. Hopefully didn't do any damage to his front wing there.
Yeah, still going, still moving, so looking like not too much damage to the car if there is any at all.
Oh, here comes Boyle. Huge run. They're going to go double file down into here.
Paul Boyle on the outside, Dan Ray on the inside. Steve Cubay thinking for a second about making it 3 wide. Lock up on the brakes. No collision between any drivers. Loses a couple spots.
Goes out
and
wide.
that puts Zach Nürnberger up to 5th. That's a spin. Oh, I hear collisions. I hear some collisions back there. Christopher Craig already out of this race, it looks like. Kevin Berquist maybe also involved in that. So I think the drivers are going to slow down here.
Yep,
that is 3 drivers involved.
Oh, man. Well, we got further than I thought we were going to, so that's positive.
Here's Craig into Lacombe. Behind, he has a little bit of a lockup from his competitor. I think he flinched a little too hard.
Yeah, that looked like a little bit of an overcorrect. If we can get another angle of that, that would be helpful to see. But yeah, I think you're right. I think just... Cubay locks up, and that's kind of what starts this whole thing here. Yeah. Ugh. And just a huge pile up after that. Nowhere for anyone to go.
You definitely hear that in the background. Kevin Berquist also experiencing this himself. He's right a couple spots behind and seems to be pretty safe. And then, wow, what's he going to do there?
Damn, that's a crash right there. And we'll probably be waiting a little bit because I'm sure some of those drivers were not able to get their cars back to the pits here. So we'll rack them back up and we'll try again, hopefully. And hopefully it'll be a little bit cleaner this next time. As just want to touch on Ken Huber. He had another packet loss, so real unfortunate for him. Just can't seem to have his luck on his side with the internet connection this season.
Yeah, I did wonder what exactly happened there for him, as he didn't ever even take the grid, and the internet connection has not been a rare problem so far. So that's an unfortunate result again here today. Eventually one of these races will pan out for him.
Yeah, and it looks like we'll be sitting here a little bit. You can see in the background there, Christopher Craig's car is missing a couple tires. So once he gets towed back around here, I think the drivers will be able to rejoin. But we'll just sit here a little bit and kind of mull over what happened there. But it was really exciting. And if that's just a taste of what's to come, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, if we want to take a look at the restart again, Dan Real obviously moving his way into second, but that was a great start by Paul Boyle there, trying to make a move. Ultimately isn't able to get it on the outside, but does get around Steve Cubay, and they're 3 wide back there. Was quite a clean turn 1. It just kind of came undone later as they made their way into Malmedy.
Yeah, and if we keep an eye on Boyle here, he gets a massive run down the Lacombe Straight, and that's what I was saying, that I think if you can get a pretty decent run through El Rouge and you got the toe on someone, you're set up for success going into the next corner here.
Yeah, here's that run that he gets. He takes it on the outside of Dan Real there. and really nails it in the braking zone. Steve Cubey so close to getting involved in that. Lost a couple positions, but of course that all gets undone there regardless.
Yeah, part of me wonders if Cube thought there was going to be a little more room there for Real, and I think maybe he was thinking Paul was going to clear him a little bit sooner, and he'd have that inside line as an opportunity. But just kind of hard to make that move on the first lap of the race. It's just there's too many cars too close around, and fortunately, got the wrong end of that deal. But like I said, everyone gets another chance here. Everyone got their car repaired, and we're ready to rack them back up with 13 of these drivers.
Yep, getting back out on the Kimmel Straight now as they work their way around. Again, the race will be restarted at the start-finish line. It'll be just like any other safety car restart that you might imagine. And when the time to go, that's up to Nick Paletti, but it will be at that finish line approximately.
Oh yeah, it looks like he's already gone. He is cruising around here.
Yeah, he knows what he needs to do here to try to get temperature into those tires. And that's going to be important for him on the restart. He had quite an easy start to this race where he was, it didn't have competitors either in second or third place. So it'll be a little bit, actually, despite this being a rolling start, should be a little bit more difficult for him, actually.
Yeah, it's a good thing there's no time penalties for not following close enough, because I think there'd be a couple of them right now. But yeah, Paletti doing what he needs to do, get the warmth in those tires, and I think he's going to be in really good shape here. He definitely doesn't want to put himself in a compromising position going down the straight there.
Still ways to go on this track. Again, one of the longest tracks in open wheel racing, at least according to modern standards. So just barely over 7 kilometers, I think 7.004 kilometers long, and a lot of places to make mistakes, a lot of places to mess up, not just losing some time, but also some treacherous parts where you can have a pretty significant crash.
Yeah, we already saw one example of a horrendous crash already, and I hope we don't see any more of those, but they're almost bound to happen at this track. We're just trying to get the field a little bit bunched up here. It looks like one driver's a little bit further behind, so they're trying to back the field down here a little bit.
Paletti slows it down as they now come into the Blanchimont section. And he's going to, Nürnberger still has a little bit to catch up here as they're coming close to about the point that Nick Paletti can kind of take control of this line here. But coming up to the bus stop chicane, and we'll see what happens into turn one, because turn one is an interesting case where if you decide to take it a little bit deeper than you might think, you do get a much better run there and through the extremely long flat out section you're about to go into.
Absolutely.
All right, Paletti is here in the bus stop chicane. Race will go when he wants. Obviously, he's probably going to wait a little bit in through this chicane, slowing it down.
And he's on it. He's gone.
And he's on the gas. There's the start-finish line. So Nick Paletti restarting this race here in first place. Dan Real second and Steve Cubey in third. We'll see if Paul Boyle is able to get those positions back early again like he did on the standing start. Paletti safe through turn one. Off tracks there will be something that people have to take care of. And Steve Cubey looking like he's losing time. What happened to Dan Real?
Yeah, it looks like he dropped. We'll see if he comes back or not. That doesn't look promising, though. Normally, once someone's gone for this long, they're gone for good.
But I don't see any actual incident for Dan Real. Steve Cubey now second place, but maybe not for much longer. Paul Boyle, another huge run down the Kimmel Straight into Lecombe. Let's see if he's able to convert this.
Cubey's aggressive, so he ain't going to just let Paul have this here, and I think we're going to see a pretty tight battle going in here. Oh, and Paul just goes out a little wide, but keeps it on the track at least.
Strong on the brakes for Steve Cubey there as he did a great job defending that. Looked like it was probably over for him, but kept it in that second place spot. But that did let Nick Paletti run away a little bit. Now it's already a 2.5 second gap for him out in front.
Yeah, and all Paletti really has to do now is kind of manage this race. I mean, 2 seconds is nothing to slouch at this track. And with off tracks being a risk, he doesn't have to push as hard now to hold on to that position. So it'll be something to keep an eye on.
Yeah, I think the other thing to keep an eye on is I think if you're behind Nicholas Paletti, you're cursed. Already now he started the race with 2 people behind him not joining. Obviously, one of them was already planned with an end of line, and then now the guy behind him here at the restart unfortunately drops from the race. So maybe you just don't want to get too close to that car.
It could be. I mean, seems like no one can get close to that car under racing conditions anyway right now. So must be an omen or something.
So obviously a lot of guys up positions from drivers that we've already lost from this race. Dannery out, Ken Huber out, and it does not look like they'll be able to rejoin. And Vihil's still not made up any spots despite that really lightning pace that we saw in qual. Has not made a spot up yet, although as I say that, he's trying to make the move on Leonardo Elijah, does so on the inside through Blanchimont, and he's got that spot. So he's up to 11th, but still a lot of work to go.
Yeah, he's got to keep moving. He almost has to pick off a car each lap if he wants to have a shot, I think, at the podium this race. He's got the pace to do it, so excited to see what he can do here. And
Zach Nurnberger here made that move, 4P5 into the bus stop chicane from way deep back. Christopher Craig giving him plenty of room, and Nurnberger slamming on the brakes, getting that move made.
Yeah, that was a nice clean move here. Field's pretty gapped out except for Christopher Craig. He's got a run on Zach here, and oh man, he might have him by the end of the straight. We'll see what he does with it.
Yeah, trying to get that spot back. Almost was too close coming up through Radion, but still has that overspeed as he pulls out to the side, out to the outside. And actually, we're going to have to watch Newbie behind as well, because Newbie's going to get that draft, and looks like Nurnberger able to actually maintain that position even. He stayed ahead.
He's got something going with those brakes, although Craig almost gets into the back of him there. He had to back out so much that Craig got a run going through the next corner there, but all worked out in the end.
I mean, if you remember, there was one car that was a little slow coming out of the pits on the restart. And Zach Nurnberger clearly getting those tires and those brakes up to temperature on that scouting lap on the way to that restart.
Yeah, he must be watching some of those tutorial videos on YouTube on how to warm those tires up, and he's making the most of it right now. He's got some really good pace, up 4 positions already, which is the most of anybody.
And you can see there, not only that, but he is starting to fall back just slightly from Richard Curry as he's having to battle from behind. It's not a lot, but it is a 2-second gap now between 4th and 5th, but Nurnberger still is leading that B-class group, which Christopher Craig is now B-class for the remainder of the season as well. So these two guys certainly competing not just for tonight, but for the rest of the season.
Yeah, Christopher Craig a little bit further down in the standings just because he hasn't been here for 2 races. But again, we have 2 drop leaks, so he's still in the fight for this championship. So he needs a good showing here tonight.
Yeah, it can be hard to try to figure out where everyone is when they've missed some races that we know are going to be dropped. That was a really wide exit for Nurnberger. It looked much faster for Christopher Craig, but unfortunately down here on the main stretch, not really a passing opportunity. It's just a little bit too short, but let's see if he's able to set up a stronger exit. Nurnberger having to take it that way just so he doesn't completely stop in that corner. And already now they're going to be side by side going into Eau Rouge.
This puts Christopher Newby in the catbird seat, if you're asking my opinion. They're both going to have to check up here. Here he comes. He's got a huge run on them.
Yeah, watch for Newby behind, as Newby did not really have to slow down for that, but actually Christopher Craig made it through there shockingly fast, all things considered.
Yeah, we'll see. I think Zach is on the outside. Craig backs out of it.
Yeah, Nurnberger had Christopher Newby ahead. Christopher Craig made a great move to pass Zach Nurnberger, and now has not just re-lost that spot, but actually lost to Newby as well.
Yeah, I'm not sure if he just didn't feel comfortable being on the inside there. I know I've had my share of issues going into that corner on the inside, so might just be playing it safe right now, just trying to get to that first pit stop.
You can see here's the move that Zach Nurnberger made on the outside. But we'll also keep in view here Christopher Newby just using that draft and making his way through. Just Craig getting completely buffeted by that raw air on the outside. No use of any draft.
Yeah, I'll tell you who's setting Paul Boyle up here, Richard Curry. He is on the back of Paul now. He has closed that gap down, and he's flying. It was 2 times quicker.
Curry's Sector 1 purple as well there, so one of the fastest guys here on track.
Yeah, and we got, it looks like 3 Castrol cars out there. I don't know if this was a plan, a team thing or something, but here he comes. Got to run on Paul.
Tough to make it work on the outside of Blanchimont. Yeah, that's just not really going to be an opportunity to pass there. However, into the chicane, It doesn't look like he's quite set it up. He's coming back from deep, just a bit of a shade, just to get some clean air for braking. Oh, but that was a little squirrely for Paul Boyle in front, however, so keep an eye on him in these braking zones, potentially getting those tires a little bit heated up.
Yeah, Paul went with the defensive line there, and that was a very good move on his part. Although he's going to have Richard Curry on the back of him here, and it's going to be a tough challenge to hold off.
Yeah, really tough to try to take it on the outside of Blanchimont like Curry did, but it's a long race and plenty of chances to poke and prod and see where the best place to make a move is.
Absolutely. And we only got, it looks like 4 drivers with 0 incidents still, so everyone's starting to rack them up.
Big run for Richard Curry here on the outside. Like we've seen, everybody who's had a run, but this looks like some huge overspeed. He's got a little bit of toe from Steve Cubé in front. Let's see how it works on the brakes. He's already far ahead. Paul Boyle backing out of it and coming behind.
Yeah, Paul doing the smart thing. He knew Richard Curry was just a little bit quicker right now, so just get in line, follow him. Maybe they can go toe up to Cubé here, so we'll see.
Newby was close to Nürnberger into that braking zone. Didn't try to make a move yet. Christopher Craig falling back a little bit, actually, despite being in that group. Now is just a little bit over a second, but Newby just a few tenths now away from Nürnberger. And the big problem was if you can't get by into the Lake Home chicane, there's really no passing opportunities for a good minute or more in this track without a mistake, although there was a mistake there by Nürnberger in Puhan, not quite wide enough to cede a position.
Yeah, we totally missed something with Adrian Garcia. Like we were talking about a few laps ago, he had cleared Leonardo Elijah, and it looks like going down into turn 1, he knocked his whole front wing and front tire off, so he had to get his car repaired and is unfortunately back in 12th there, just trying to get into that top 10 transfer.
Yeah, let's. I don't see any event for the crash. Let's see if maybe this is able to catch it here. This is when Leonardo Elijah. Oh,
yeah, very odd crash.
Yeah, just looking at Price, staring at that apex, and just didn't notice he drifted over into the grass just ever so slightly. Christopher Newby here on the outside into the bus stop. It's going to be a tough ask to make this move. Nürnberger's got control of the corner.
Although he's going to get the run back here potentially. We'll see.
Another short straight here. Not a lot to work with as they head into turn 1. Turn 1's the really important one, as you got to nail it. You're on throttle for a long time after that. Both taking about the same line through there.
Richard Curry, last lap.
Oh, and that's a spin back there by Christopher Craig. I don't think that collected anybody else.
He keeps it clean, but he's
totally
wait.
Backwards.
Yeah, he's got to wait. Oh, that's unfortunate. Richard Curry was 0.6 quicker than Poletti, and Christopher Newby's coming back on Zach Nürnberger.
Christopher Newby taking on the outside. Nürnberger, nothing he can do but just hope that he doesn't have too much speed, but it does look like he's already going to be a full car ahead into the braking zone. Nürnberger, is he going to try to outbrake this?
Oh.
Not quite.
What a move. Good job, Christopher. That was a great move.
Christopher Craig, here's that incident that he had in turn 1. I can imagine what happened. It's not a shocker.
Yep. Classic.
Even had that lock up into that corner, too.
Yeah, it's the second one we've seen now, and I think as the tires get more worn, I think we're going to see more of that. Yeah, but
Paul Boyle here in 4th place, keeping it close to Richard Curry, and both of these guys catching up to Steve Cubé as well. And with all that being said, since the start, when Poletti grabbed that 2.5-second lead halfway through lap 1, hasn't pulled away a lot. It's just barely over 4 seconds.
Yeah, no, and you have to wonder if he's just conserving his stuff. I think if Richard Curry can get around Steve Cubé here, and maybe Boyle as well, they could challenge Poletti.
This was ahead of that Nürnberger Newby battle that we saw back there, and this was Richard Curry getting the move done on Paul Boyle, of course.
They made that look easy.
These 3 drivers all within a second of each other, trying to catch up and trying to get into those podium spots. And right now, the reverse grid pole position would be Tony Watson here in 8th place, so that's an important spot. And Daniel Barnett just a couple seconds back trying to claim that from him.
We see as the lap times come up here, Poletti picked it up now. He must have heard us talking. 0.2 quicker than Curry, 0.4 quicker than Cubé, so solid lap there.
And no huge gaps that we're seeing develop really this early. I guess really that 4-second lead for Paletti, while it may not be huge, it is pretty notable given the fact that not really any other drivers are separated by that much.
Yeah, no, exactly. He has one of the biggest gaps to the next driver on the track. But I think things are going to heat up here in the next lap or so for the top 2 through 4, and maybe even 5th and 6th. They are actually, Christopher Newby and Zach Nuremberger, closing in on the back of Paul a little bit each lap. So this could get really exciting as the pack closes up here before the first pit stop.
Yeah, Nuremberger didn't attempt to make a pass there in that corner, and maybe he's aware of what you just brought up right there. Is if he doesn't try to make a move, that whole deal of push and tow, and if they don't lose any time by battling, they can easily catch up to the guys in front of them. Potentially that's on his mind, or he just didn't really feel like making a move because he's been in a lot of action early in this race, and maybe just giving a little bit of a break on the tires.
Yeah, he can't make all the highlight reels, so he's just saving up a couple for the end here, I guess. But Cube had a little bit of a strong infield of this track. He's put a 1.2 second gap now between him and Curry, so pulling away a little bit. Strong show in there.
Yeah, reaction to how close those couple guys were getting to him, as it was starting to heat up at the front, and those gaps have now all grown. I guess with the exception of Steve Cube has caught up a couple tenths to Paletti there, but not enough to make this a race between the two yet. As you can see, Paletti making his way out of the bus stop chicane, crossing the finish line, and Cube is still back there in the chicane.
Yeah, Paletti had an almost off-track Impujon, so I think that's what happened there. Just trying to prevent that from happening. As we see, 2/10 that lap for Cube on Paletti, and he pulls 7/10 on Richard Curry, so pulling that gap now. But Christopher Newby, guys, has got it down to 2 seconds now. He took about a second out of Paul that lap, so this could get really interesting here. And I think Nuremberger, he wants to, and I think he's going to do the smart thing here, is just stay in line and work with him.
Dale Barnett, mistake by Tony Watson. Barnett trying to get that 8th place spot, not able to do it there in turn 1. Let's see if he's able to make it happen down into Rouge, up through Radion, and he's going to be a little close. He might have to do a bit of a lift here. Still going to, oh, he's already making, he's already trying to make the move.
Car was half sideways, and he's still going.
He's got a run on Tony Watson here for the reverse grid pole position. 8th and 9th up for grabs here between the two. Tony Watson on the inside, Dale Barnett on the outside.
It's a game of chicken. Who's going to get on the brakes first? Oh, Tony does.
Tony Watson deeper. Let's see if he keeps it. He keeps it on the track. That was a good defense there for Tony Watson.
Oh, he gets loose. Man, these guys are driving their cars to their absolute limits here. This is fantastic.
Speaking of loose, Kevin Berquist is here off in just before Malmedy.
This is really important. That's the last transfer spot there right now, fighting. Oh.
Lucky to keep it out of the wall. It looks like there, at least tough to tell from that view, but didn't hear anything.
The car looks pretty clean. Him and Christopher Craig fighting for that 10th final spot. We invert the top 10, so that's going to be interesting to keep our eyes on here.
Oh, you are, yeah. I was thinking F2. I was thinking real life F2. Sorry. Yes. No, top 10. Yeah, inverted. Correct. So the spot between the two is there. Like you said, Berquist and Craig now. Two guys who have had a spin and lost, 10 or so seconds in this race.
Yeah, and we see the gap continue to come down here for Christopher Newby. He's got it under 2 seconds now. Will Zach make a move?
Nuremberger trying to make a move into the bus stop. And the cars get together. I don't think
that was neck code.
I don't think that Newby knew he was there.
That was unfortunate neck code there. They did not touch. They might have touched later on, but that's a bummer for both of those drivers. They were flying.
See from the point of view here of Zach Nuremberger, just come through Blanchemont, huge run, gonna go to the outside into the bus stop. Yeah, I think Newby kind of slowly closing down by the time that Nuremberger already had kind of established his car there in that spot. So unfortunately getting together in a pretty aggressive way. Both cars able to keep going.
Meatball
and
for
Christopher Craig also just had this happen into the bus stop. Ooh. You could hear the tire. Oh, and
there he goes.
Nearly lost it in the middle of the chicane, ends up losing on the outside, earning an off track for his troubles at the same time too.
Yeah, Newbie just trying to limp it back to the pits. Oh, Barnett loses it behind Newbie, but catches it before it's a full incident. But that's a bummer for Christopher. They'll come back around, get the car repaired, but he's not out of it yet completely because everyone does have to make a pit stop, and I would have to think they're in their window by now.
Yeah, and even if they're not, if he can just get one more position, a little bit of not really a spin, but an incident there for Christopher Newbie in No Name corner. I think probably just trying to avoid the wall there.
Yeah, that car's driving like a dog right now for him. Him and Zach are both struggling to just get it back around.
Here actually.
Nice save.
Ooh. Yeah. Totally off the throttle there, trying to just keep it out of the wall. Does so. And yeah, you can see some damage there. The front should be in that pit window. And no shame in getting that fixed now because it does seem to be pretty heavily hampering his driving.
Absolutely. None of the front runners coming in yet, so we're halfway through this race. Haven't seen any. Oh, Paul Boyle loses it. Gets it going again.
Well, you can see there how hot his tires are as he even recovers from that spin.
Oh, and Zach does the wise thing, comes on into the pits to get that front wing repaired.
Yeah, I had a little bit of crinkle damage to the front of his car, and getting that fixed in the pit window here is we're just now about, well, we just got halfway through this race. Lap 11, or we'll be halfway through this race soon. Lap 11 to 22. And it looks like Newbie coming into the pit lane. That's no surprise there as he had some pretty bad issues with his car. Nürnberger already on the exit. And it'll be interesting to see who comes out here in the top 10. Newbie on the pit still and is currently in 11th. So if Christopher Craig is able to go to the end, he is going to be ahead of Newbie despite both of them having to come in already.
Yeah, that battle is going to be up for grabs, I think. Something... Barnett, Berquist just got around Barnett.
Yeah, Kevin Berquist making that pass. Obviously, we saw him lose some time earlier in this race trying to get back some positions.
Fun paint that Daniel Barnett has there.
Here's the move. Up the Radeon. Just had that overspeed as we've seen a lot of guys come from behind doing. And I don't think Barnett really fighting that too hard. I think maybe even done a little bit of a lift just to make things easier on everybody. Christopher Craig here. We saw Craig Newbie and Nürnberger all fighting for, I think it was the 5th place position at that time. And now, just having all made their pit stops, they're here 9th, 10th, 11th. But Christopher Craig has still kept it close to Nürnberger.
Yeah, keeping him in his sights. Adrian has actually got the gap down to 1 second on Newbie, so those drivers have both pitted. I don't know if Adrian's going to be able to go to the end, though.
Interesting to see, and of course, if Adrian's not able to make it into the top 10, then whatever position he finishes in is also what he's going to have to start in that second race. So obviously had to start from last in this race, but just really hoping he's able to get to that top 10 so he can have a little bit of a reverse of fortune, at least for the sprint race. Richard Curry and Tony Watson both coming into the pits, both on their pit exit.
Yeah, and these
seem like a longer pit stop for Tony, though.
Yeah, these seem to be scheduled stops, though, so... yeah, we see...
oh, that was something messed up there for Tony's stop.
Yeah. Yeah, because here comes Daniel Barnett. We'll see, just for comparison, I think his stop will be a lot quicker than that.
Yeah, Tony was up there in 7th or 8th and now back down to 9th. Barnett coming up behind him. But, yeah, that seemed like a really long stop there as we saw him and Richard Curry come in at pretty much the exact same time.
Yeah, I wonder if Richard... well, I don't think tires would make that big of a difference. I don't know what happened. It's odd.
The pit time was 7.4, which that wasn't weird. But what about total pit lane time? A couple seconds slower, at least than Nürnberger there. That's an interesting, also a couple seconds slower than Vihil, but close to the other. So I'm not sure what made that look so slow there, but maybe not so bad for him.
And I'll tell you, Paul is pushing his car to the absolute limit right now. That thing looks like it's going to spin out every corner he goes through. And we already have our first driver over the incident count, Christopher Newby at 11. So no safety points for him tonight in this first race.
Yeah, Newby only has 6 points on the season so far. I think he's kind of unfortunately found himself involved in a couple incidents in the previous races as well. So, of course, I quoted Paletti's 22 safety points earlier. That is definitely on the sharp end of the field. Not a lot of guys really even approaching that. And it's really helped to set him apart from the rest of the field in these standings, at least currently as is.
Yeah, absolutely. Steve Cube and Paul Boyle came into this race only separated by 3 points. So depending on how the rest of this race goes, they could come out of, well, I know there's another race here tonight, but they could come out of here almost tied. So that's an interesting battle to keep our eyes on. And Richard Curry having a solid run here as well. A little bit further back in the points, but having a really good showing this first race.
And within those 3 points, separating those two guys, had John Kelly right in between the two, and he's not here at this race, so he's a driver up at the top end of this field in the B class, third in the B class, fifth overall, and obviously not going to be scoring any points as he's absent from this race.
Yeah, a lot of drivers taking their drop week tonight, so as we go into Zandvoort in 2 weeks, so that'll be interesting.
Yeah, this next race, Chambord, will be a very difficult one as it's a lot less popular of a track than the ones we've done so far. A lot less time spent from these guys, but Spa is a popular one. A lot of these guys have done it a lot. It's present in basically every series that runs on the road in iRacing, and looks like a lot of expertise out here, as we really haven't seen too many large mistakes. As Vihil there making his way past Dan Barnett coming down the Kimmel Straight, just one position away from making his way into that top 10 and a spin.
That's damage for both of those drivers there. Not a lot, but that's unfortunate.
Yeah, Vihil may actually be okay considering that was at the rear of the car, but he's quitting. He's parking it. But yeah, we saw the crinkle of Barnett's front wing, although it looks like it may have actually kind of healed itself. Happens sometimes with some minor collisions, and it looks like he may be no worse for wear. Nicholas Paletti now taking it into the pits, so he will be ceding that lead. Well, okay, Steve Cube coming to the pits as well. Let's see if anybody stays out.
Yeah, top three all coming in. We'll see who can make up some ground here. You see Paletti come in, very aggressive entry, gets those tires put on, and he is away before Cube even gets in his box. So he's got a nice gap.
So he's coming out quite clear of the rest of the field. Curry is now the driver who is in second place. And so Steve Cube has lost that second place spot that he had. Curry has now jumped him, but they're only about a second apart.
Yeah, Curry gets ahead, but look at Paletti's gap now. I don't even know how it went up even more, but it wasn't that much quicker in the pit lane, so I don't know if his in lap or what happened there, but just running away with it like he always does now.
Yeah, pit lane time for Paletti was 33.5 seconds, 34 for Curry, 34.2 for Cube. Pretty slow stop there for Paul Boyle, all things considered. I mean, 1.2 seconds slower than Paletti there at the front, and certainly a lot slower than that short stop that we saw earlier for Zach Nurnberger. So you have to wonder if Zach Nurnberger potentially not fueling up enough for the end of this race, or if he's just able to save that much. But his stop, considering that was a race stop, was much faster than everybody else.
Absolutely, and I think the little variations you see, it all depends on how you stop in your box. That kind of comes down to the calculations that iRacing does, depending on how centered you are and whatnot. Your pit time's a little bit quicker, and I think that's why we see those little variations here, as we see Christopher Newby trying to bounce back, gain some spots back.
These three drivers here all fighting for 7th place as it is. Leonardo Elijah up there 7th, and Berkwas 8th, and Newby in 9th. all up positions from where they started. Again, we've had a few incidents take some guys up at the top and put them at the back here out of this race.
I don't know. I think Tony already pitted, and if so, Tony has had a master class at coming through the field. Started shotgun on the field all the way up to 6. Great run for Tony Watson here.
Yeah, Watson made up a lot of positions early and did it quite quietly, honestly. Did it in the first couple laps just when there was a lot of chaos going on. And, yeah, up to 6th, has that 5 seconds to Nürburgring. And potentially, if Nürburgring underfueled, has an opportunity to catch up even more.
I'll tell you, Nürburgring is flying out here. We'll see the lap times as they come across the line here, but he's cutting the gap down into Paul here considerably each lap.
And Nürburgring's last lap was his personal best, and that's even faster than the laps that he rode behind Newby, where he was just trying to catch up to Steve Cubet in front. Newby here making his move on not just one car, but 2 into the bus stop. Looks like he's just going to make it work on Bergquist, and Elijah, he's going to have to size up for another opportunity.
Heads up.
Tony Watson there, fastest lap for himself on that last lap as well.
Yeah, solid lap there for Tony. Heads up driving there by those guys. Kevin Bergquist to give Christopher Newby a little bit of extra room there. And I think Kevin Bergquist knows he'll get another shot here with the run down Camel.
Here were the 3 drivers into the bus stop chicane. Elijah on the outside, Newby on the inside, only able to make it work on Kevin Bergquist.
Oh man, we're setting up here. Here we go. Christopher Newby got a run on a Leonardo Elijah and Kevin Bergquist in the wings to see what happens.
Elijah taking that outside. Most of the drivers have taken the inside when they've been the driver in front. And it looks like he's going to be hurting because the inside is a nice braking zone here for Newby. And Bergquist behind, not close enough to try to take advantage. He's going to stay at the back of these 3, at least for these next couple corners.
Yeah, solid drive by Leonardo Elijah. Just wondering if his tires are maybe a little overheated right now or something that's putting him under attack.
So you can see there, everybody having taken their stop except for, well, I guess Vihila, we saw him tow. So, yeah, every driver has made their stop, and they've made it within the last 4 laps. So it should be good to go to the end for all these guys.
Absolutely. And these drivers right here, they know, like Leonardo, Kevin, they're in the transfer spot. They're potentially starting 2nd and 3rd on the grid for the next race. So they want to be careful here not to make any major mistakes that would take them out of that window.
Yeah, Christopher Craig not that far back to be able to make his way into the top 10 if anything were to happen, especially to these guys up here. But 6 seconds is a lot to ask over 6 laps here. He may be able to claim that 10th place spot, but it might require some actions from some other drivers as well. Steve Cubet there putting in his personal best as the fuel starts to run low in these cars. And it looks like it's just some good track conditions. Kevin Bergquist trying to make a move on Leonardo Elijah. Going to go on the inside here into the bus stop. Already has a good wheel. Much deeper by Elijah. Keeps it in the track. Great defense, but he's got to, and that looks like a slow exit for Bergquist there.
Yeah, I just didn't have the traction getting off there, and that's bringing Daniel Barnett into this. Look at his lap time compared to the other drivers, almost 2 seconds quicker. So closing in on these guys.
Yeah, that was a personal best on the previous lap for Barnett. Not that far off on that previous one, 2/10. And then a real fast lap there for Christopher Craig in that 12:1. It's one of the fastest guys on track, only behind really Paul Boyle right now.
Yeah, that's the thing. Paul Boyle and Steve Cubet really stepped it up, but they're just so far back. It's like impossible to get into that gap for Paletti. Although Richard Curry, I believe that gap was 9 seconds at one point between him and Paletti. It is under 9 now, so a little bit of headway there, but not enough to really make any impact.
Kevin Bergquist sailing through into the Lecombe chicane past Leonardo Elijah. And yeah, the worst part is if you're Elijah's position, you have to stay behind for a lot of corners now, even if you have that pace to try to get that position back. Just not a whole lot you can do, but a good move there for Bergquist on the inside.
Yep, and I think Leonardo driving smart there, knowing that, okay, I shouldn't fight this. I'm in a good position for the next race. Don't want to mess that up, so. Yeah, it's just a textbook pass right there.
Yep, not fighting too hard by Elijah, but really nothing he can do. There's just only so much you can do when you're both heading straight, and he's just got more speed than you from the toe. So losing that spot, but trying to stay close enough to challenge maybe next time to get back around. It's about to, it just did now break a second, so it is going to be difficult.
Absolutely. Yeah, you kind of want to be within at least a second to really get that powerful toe. And when you're this far back, it's minimal impact. As we see the lap times this lap, Paletti picks it back up again and was like 3/10 quicker than anyone in the top 5. So I guess he heard us again talking. We shouldn't mention him anymore.
Yeah, not been too difficult of a night for Paletti on the standing start. Didn't have 2 guys behind him on the restart. The guy behind him disappeared. So it has been a pretty simple race for him, and he's put in the pace that he needs to win. It's going to be a lot more tricky, of course, next heat when he has to start from 10th place, providing that he does win here over these last 5 laps, where he has to start from 10th place and pick his way through the field. However, he's done well so far this season when he's been in that situation.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to the second race here, having an inverted field, because there's a couple fast guys like Christopher Newby. If Christopher Craig can get to the top 10, Tony Watson's really picked it up in this second half of the race. I think it's going to be really exciting having those guys out front. I know when we ran this a few seasons ago as Dark Horse, the second race was insane because it was so hard for the faster guys to pass, even though they had the toe and everything. And it was incredible. So I think we should probably expect that here in our sprint race coming up.
Yeah, a lot of the things that these guys are doing is also learning for this sprint race, and I think that we've really seen that a lot so far in this season. Is just the level of competition increases even more in that sprint race. You've got these guys who, maybe some of them have a chip on their shoulder from something that happened in the first race. Maybe some of them, they're buoyed by some confidence that they had a good result in that feature. And there's just a lot you can learn about the limits of the track and the limits of the car in a race scenario. And I think that's what's been so great about the sprint format so far.
Yeah, absolutely. I know when I used to run these cars, the second race, I was always way more competitive because, like you said, you learn the limits. You learn what the car is going to tolerate and what it's not, especially on cold tires. Because that's something you can't really, you could try to account for in practice, but on a standing start, all bets are off. So something to keep an eye on.
And Bergquist keeping it close as Christopher Newby here has not tried to make a move yet. Leonard Elijah falling back a little bit. Again, Bergquist at one point, we saw him at the back of this group of 3. It took him a little bit to get around Elijah, but now that he has, he's able to put some more pace into trying to catch up to Christopher Newby. Lost some in that chicane, though.
Yeah, absolutely. This is the closest battle on track right now. Most of the pack spread out just due to incidents and pit stops. And I think a lot of these drivers are just counting down to the end of this race, trying not to pick up too many more incidents. In fact, only 2 drivers are outside the 10 incident threshold. And in fact, no surprise here, Paletti, 0 incidents. But another driver who actually is having a great race is Leonardo Elijah, also has 0 incidents. So that's a good haul of safety points for him.
Yeah, Elijah's had some clean racing in this race. At one point was running up there in 7th. Led a couple positions here over the last couple laps, but still has kept it close to these guys. May have to worry about Daniel Burnett behind a little bit. Just a 3-second or so gap with 4 laps to go. He just needs to drive just fast enough to keep out of that. But yeah, 9th place would be a good finish for him here, and that would be him starting on the front row.
Burnett has hit the wall. That's going to put his top 10 in jeopardy here. This is going to get really spicy here with Christopher Craig and him.
Yeah, he's already lost it. Yep.
Yeah.
Christopher Craig already making his way around. I don't see catastrophic damage to that car, but yeah, losing that spot already. So that's the topic is kind of already passed as Christopher Craig is gifted that 10th place. Was really desperate to try to get there after an event-filled feature and just trying to not have to start from 11th. Unfortunately, Daniel Burnett is going to be the guy in 11th as it stands, but still a lot of stuff can happen in these last 3 laps. If anything, any guy ahead of him were to crash, he would get that spot.
Absolutely, and Burnett could still come back here. Like you said, I'm looking at his car right now. It does not look like he picked up a ton of damage from that. But more importantly, Christopher Craig really had some solid pace here. Moments throughout this race, so him starting on pole, he potentially run away with this and get a big enough gap in the next race to maybe pull off a really solid finish. So we'll keep an eye on that.
Yeah, I don't think we really know the pace of. And he's actually having to come into the pits here, Daniel Burnett.
Craig coming in too.
Also,
That's
let's not be confident about fuel. It did look like that may have been the end of his 10th place, but Barnett's coming into the pits as well. Maybe to get any sort of damage that he got, he may have gotten worse than we thought, but he did seem to have okay pace there after that incident.
Yeah, I guess the battle's still on here, so we'll have to keep an eye on that. See who comes out of the pits here first. They both get their day.
Oh, Craig coming out.
Oh, that's a surprise.
Well, don't know what happened there, but that is going to give Daniel Barnett the 10th place spot back again. As it is, he's going to be our reverse grid pole. So, man, the difference between 11th and 10th is massive, and I have no idea what happened for Christopher Craig there, but he is out of this race and out of the car.
Yeah. Wondering if he's going to go fire some of his pit crew or something. They pulled him out of the car at the wrong time or something. I don't know what happened there, but yeah, other than that, I mean, the closest battle right now we're watching is Christopher Newby and Kevin Bergquist here. Bergquist has continued to cut into that.
Yeah, Bergquist, strong race so far. See if he can cap it off by another position gained. Newby and Bergquist not in the same class, but all the points, all the positions count for the same points. So still would be a benefit to him. But he is running there in that B class, one of the top runners, especially had a really good first round as far as qualifying in, or actually that was Efray, I think, so far this season, Red Bull Ring has been his best, where he scored 36 points and had 3 safety points to boot as well. And this could be a good start to another strong haul in this race.
Yeah, just to top off the whole Christopher Craig thing, the report is he was nursing a hand injury, so it was bothering him a little too much and pulled it in for the night.
So I would imagine we do not see Christopher Craig in that second race, regardless of the fact that he was going to have to be starting from 11th. I am interested to see if we do see Vahil and Real, because they're both in the pits. Like their cars are here in the session.
Yeah, it looks like they will be continuing. So looking forward to seeing what those two guys have, because they were both very quick this race. So they'll have
I don't think we're going to see Huber, though.
Yeah, they'll have a challenge, though, coming through the field, because they won't be in the transfer, but something to keep an eye on.
So we have 3 laps to go. Paletti is now about halfway through this lap, so he'll make it 2 to go once he gets to that point. And it has been a strong race for him up at the front, and not had any stress from behind. Has had at least a couple second gap as far as once we even got a third of the way into the race. So it's been an easy one for him here. Interesting to see how it works in the sprint race. He has not had a simple sprint race so far this season. He's been quite close to Zach Nuremberger in all 3 races. I think the average gap between the 3 in all 3 is something like just a second, because 2 of them were less than a second, and the one was just the Red Bull Ring was the huge gap of 2.5 seconds between the 2.
Yeah, they really know how to put on a good show. And Daniel Barnett's got to be very thankful that Christopher Craig pulled off, because Barnett has a black flag he needs to serve. So I believe he is over the incident limit. So he'll have to come in and serve that penalty before the end of this.
Yeah, I have to imagine that that's where that came from. But like you said, it's not going to affect his position, as there's nobody on the track behind him. We only have people out of the race, so Barnett will have to come in, but he'll come out still in that 10th place spot. Steve Cubey, another personal best. He actually is starting to close up to Richard Curry, but just ever so slightly, and I don't think with 2 laps to go it's quite enough.
No, something pretty much, I mean, we look at the leaderboard here, something major is going to have to happen for, I think, pretty much any of these spots to change, minus maybe the Bergquist battle and Newbie battle, but yeah, just kind of status quo. Everyone just, I think, kind of riding, taking it easy, and just kind of preparing themselves for the next race.
Yeah, Bergquist was looking for a second like he was going to be able to really put a strong pressure on Christopher Newby in front, but Newby responding and looking like he's pulled enough of a gap that I think he'll probably be safe as long as he keeps it on the track.
Yeah, I think so. Looking very safe out there. So yeah, this will be interesting for the points. Richard Curry
Well, top 4 positions right now, all in pro. Zach Nuremberger is the top finisher currently for B class, with Tony Watson just behind him there in 6th. So good finishing positions for them overall. And Paletti looking like he's probably going to come away with another win. So far on the season, he's got 5 of 6 heat wins. The only other winner of a heat was Will Borland, who we only saw in week 1 at Silverstone. So I would love to see what Will Borland could maybe take, to take against Paletti here, and if he'd be able to be someone who could compete with him. He certainly did in that first race.
Yeah. Will and Ken have really been the 2 big challengers in A class. And I mean, if you look at the podiums for the season, you have coming into this race, Paletti had 5. The next highest is Boyle at 3, and then 2 for Borland, and everyone else just has a single podium. And that tells you right there why Paletti has such a big points gap. No one has really been consistent like him.
Oh, looks like there may have been an incident for Tony Watson here on the final lap. I guess this is right before the final lap, into the bus stop chicane, lap 21.
Oh, it's going to be a classic spin coming. Oh, there it is. Yep. Good recovery, though.
Good save, yeah. Did a good job to not get his car all the way turned around. It happens to everybody there in that corner. Paletti making his way through No Name Corner. And he's going to be cruising to a win here, as he has that white flag now through Puhan or Double Gauche, whichever name you want to give it. Pretty much any turn on this track has at least 2 names, sometimes even 3 or 4. So good luck trying to get it all squared away with everybody. Now making his way through Lafanya, and just has a few more corners to contend with to bring home a 6th heat victory on the season.
Yeah, and this will actually be his biggest margin of victory so far this season. His largest coming into this was 9.8 seconds, and it's going to look like to be maybe 11 here. So really just put a beating on them from start to finish. He was quick off the line with lights out and hasn't looked back since.
Making his way through Blanchimont, just has the bus stop chicane to make his way through. I'm interested to see what he has in the next race. I feel like he's hiding a little bit up his sleeve, as he hasn't been really pressured too hard in this race. But as he makes his way through the bus stop chicane, Nicholas Paletti coming across the line as a victor in another heat. But he's going to be starting from 10th in the sprint race, adding another level of challenge for him. Richard Curry behind, coming in 2nd. Steve Cubey was catching up. Probably wish there was a couple more laps, finishing in 3rd. Both drivers getting a podium here in this race. Paul Boyle in 4th, and Zach Nuremberger will be our race winner for the feature in the B class.
Yeah.
Tony Watson making his way around the final corner. He's coming in 2nd. Strong race for him, 6th overall. Christopher Newby able to defend from Kevin Berquist late in this race. Just has to make it through the apex. Does so in that Castrol car, and he's going to come across in 7th, with Kevin Berquist right behind, couple seconds in 8th place. Leonardo Elijah making his way through the turn as well. He'll come across in 9th with, does he still have 0 incident points?
He is the only driver. Paletti racked up 2 there right at the end. So Leonardo, hats off to him on the 0x for that.
Really strong showing for Elijah. Very difficult to do that at any track, let alone Spa being one of the hardest of all to do that. Daniel Barnett here in 10th place. Had to serve that drive-through, but will finish in 10th and get that reverse grid pole. So we'll see this KISS car here on the front in this feature, or in the sprint race, in just a few minutes, as he comes around the final few corners to finish out this lap.
Yep, and he did just enough, and he's going to get the reward. And honestly, there were moments throughout that race where he had some pretty good pace. So I'm kind of excited to see what he can do starting on the pole here.
He'll be right beside Leonardo Elijah. We'll see if we can go a race without a red flag here at the start.
Give these drivers a little bit of break here with some warm-up. So take a look at the results.
Yep, our results, official results for the finish. Nicholas Paletti winning the race by 10.8 seconds over Richard Curry and Steve Cubé coming in third. Paul Boyle finishing fourth, and Zach Nuremberg rounding out the top 5 and first for the B class. Tony Watson sixth, Christopher Newby in seventh, Berquist eighth, Leonard Elijah ninth, Daniel Burnett 10th. And then behind them, the drivers who did not finish this race, Christopher Craig, Adrian Garcia-Vigil, Dan Real, and Ken Huber. We will be back in just a few moments. All right, and we are back. We have a 16-lap sprint race coming up. Daniel Barnett will be on pole position, and we'll see how he's able to contend here with the start of this race with Leonardo Elijah right beside him.
Yep, and we're hoping to see the return of, it looks like Adrian is already on the grid, so happy to see him out here. We'll see if Daniel also comes out here or not. And
yeah, Dan Real was the other one that we think might be rejoining the race, just given the fact that he was, at least his car was still in the session after that, whatever had happened to him at the start of that second race. But shorter gridding procedure here for the sprint race. Only 1 minute, so 20 seconds, and we'll see the grid filled out. Again, first place, second and third, yet to have gridded. There's something cursed here if these guys
really
don't
is.
join. Still waiting.
Oh, man.
Not seeing.
The burn burner.
Barnett may have an easy time here at the front with Christopher Newby 3 spots behind is the next guy. And yeah, that's it. That's the end of the gridding procedure. So second and third not joining the grid. The red lights are about to come up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Green flag.
Lights out. Great start for Dan Barnett there. A little bit of wheel spin for Christopher Newby.
Yeah, Boyle further
Into
back,
turn
it's a
one.
Great start.
Zach Nurnberger diving in. He's in third place. Paul Boyle on the outside. Tony Watson there in fifth. We do not have Ken Huber or Dan Real, and obviously Christopher Craig, but I'm not seeing Elijah Berquist. They're out of the session as well, potentially.
Yeah, it looks like Leonardo has put it on the hauler.
I have no idea what happened. They had a really strong race. We're starting in second. Very wide for
Here comes
Newby here.
Pletty's got a huge run here on Cube.
Paletti making the move on the outside of Cube. Has made that pass. At least is ahead. Newby behind, trying to get involved as well. Right behind Tony Watson. 3 wide back there. Cube in the middle. Got to stay ahead of at least one. You're going to lose the other. Tony Watson staying on track. This may be our first full green lap, but I guess it's a long lap, so let's see. But we may not get a red flag here. Tony Watson out into the sand. Doesn't lose a position.
Nurnberger putting a move on Nube.
Nurnberger deep on the inside of Brissell. Tough passing opportunity there. Really only going to see that in turn 1. Still not able to convert it. Paul Bill behind, a little bit wide in No Name. May have picked up an off track there. And he moved into Puhan. No one's trying to do anything yet.
Yeah, Pletty already up 4 spots. He's just kind of biding his time at this point. He's already made up well more than what he needed to.
Yeah, to be fair, he had 2 right off the bat with drivers not joining. So that was a couple easy spots for him. Kevin Berquist now is in the pits, so he's in this session. No idea what happened to him there. But yeah, he's got a lot to catch up now, of course.
Yeah, I guess they're having trouble getting the engine started or something. They'll go get the starter and see. And he is out on the track now, so ride around, try to pick up some spots or something.
Yeah, maybe was unaware of the short gridding procedure. Wouldn't be surprising. Wouldn't be the first person who's caught off guard by that.
Here comes Boyle. He backs out of it. He was thinking about putting a move on Nurnberger there.
Yeah, not a lot of really daring moves being made early in this race. Looks like there may have been a spin. That is here on this first lap still. May have a red flag here. Nobody's taken out of the race.
Only 2 cars involved. I think we're going to keep going.
Yeah, Daniel Barnett still leading the race. Set a purple lap there and kept that lead. Strong showing for him. Let's see if we can get an idea of what happened with Newby and Nurnberger.
That's a bold move there.
Yeah, that was a little deep. That was a little deep for Nurnberger there. That was not Newby had already started the turn in and just really didn't have any earned room at that point. All 3 of those identical cars there next to each other, making things extra hard for us.
And Tony Watson is showing his strength up to second. Just completed the pass on Paul Boyle there. I'm telling you, Tony has got a shot, I think, here at the win.
Yeah, Watson, huge run out of Radion. Really wanted to get some draft, but had so much of an overspeed that he immediately had to pull out to try to make the move.
Exactly, and that can be the problem sometimes. As we see, Paletti has made it up to 4th, and Adrian Garcia up to 6th. So those 2 have really, I know we've had quite a few incidents and quite a few cars just missing, but good rebound for them so far.
Paletti trying to chase down his teammate here. Paul Boyle has been able to, I guess we really haven't seen him make a move for position, I don't think, yet, Paletti. It's been some mistakes that have taken some cars out of his way for him, which has been a nice start to this race. It's going to get harder as they start to string out like this here, but next up is Paul Boyle there in third. Daniel Burnett still leading with 9/10, and probably will come across to lead another lap here after he makes his way through the bus stop.
Yeah, solid drive so far for Barnett, although Tony closing the gap ever so slightly. And Paletti all over the back of Boyle. We'll see if he makes the move here going in.
Nürnberger losing that spot to Steve Cubey, now dropping down to 9th. Have to wonder if there's potentially any damage from that incident that we saw. I don't see anything visually, but could still be on there for sure.
Yeah, it looks like the right front on Nürnberger's wings crinkled a little, probably hurting some of the top end and some of the downforce. So
very fast lap for Tony Watson there, into the 11s already in this race. Lap 3, or that was lap 2, and put in an 11. And no one even close to his pace. Obviously, didn't have to worry about anybody behind, as he did have a second or so gap that throughout that entire period. But see if he's able to make a move and try to get up to Daniel Burnett on this lap.
Got to run, but Paletti on Boyle. That's the real move here.
The inside as well. It's been the stronger braking zone for all of these guys, and he's got that boost of some toe on the inside, which is a rare occurrence. And it looks like he is going to be ahead of Paul Boyle confidently here. Yes, he will take that position up to third. And Tony Watson is close to Barnett. Wasn't able to make it happen on that straight, though.
And Tony knows he's got to go, because if he doesn't get around Barnett here soon, and he locks up, it's going to be all over, because Paletti will be all over him. I think Barnett...
It's going to be tough to make that defense.
Yeah, Barnett's starting to feel some pressure, I think. He's locked up a couple times here, just trying to hold on to that lead. He's doing a good job. It's hard when you got people reeling on your back that are a little bit quicker, and it can, force you into mistakes.
Yeah, Barnett's looked really good so far. See if it gets a little more difficult when you got a car, breathing down your neck. Was a little twitchy there through Puhan, keeping the car on the track. Now through Lefania, a couple guys looking like they might have gone a little bit wide there.
Ooh, that's definitely an off track there for Boyle and Watson. Watson's got...
Yeah, Watson not unhappy to take that one, though. That got him some extra pace and has set him up to potentially make a move here. He's going to try to go on the outside of Blanchimont, but they are side by side.
It's
going to be a tough ask.
Paletti, here he comes. Oh, he backs out of it.
Tony Watson making the move to the front for the lead, and Paletti trying to make the dive down into second. No, he's backing out of it.
Oh!
Tony Watson.
There was almost contact there with Barnett and Watson. Barnett went in a little deep and had to check up now. Here comes Paletti.
Tony Watson, new race leader here for this race. He's got that buffer right now. Dan Burnett, but Nicholas Paletti charging, trying to doesn't try to make it happen into turn 1. We'll see if he's able to make it happen down the Kimmel Straight. And coming down, looks like Paletti had to just let up a little bit through a Rouge. Way faster right now through this section. He's going to go on the outside. It's a tougher braking point, but it's looking like he's got a huge run on Daniel Burnett. Barnett looking to try to at least just keep that third place and stay ahead of Richard Curry there. He's going to slot back in. And Paletti up 8 spots now in this race, up into second place.
Yep. And coming with him is Adrian Garcia. He has closed the gap as well, following his lookalike, Richard Curry. So they're closing in. They'll probably get around Barnett here before too long.
Yeah, we never really got to see what Vihil could do in that feature race. I had to start from the back, then had an incident. Had another incident when he was making his way, trying to make his way past Daniel Barnett. Ended up just calling it quits on that race. So very interested to see how it goes for him here in this race, where he's had the opportunity to really put everything out there. Had to start outside of the top 10, but still up 7 spots into 5th.
Yeah, and man, Barnett is doing a great job through that part of the track. It seems to be the top end bits that he's losing a little bit of time, but was holding on to Paletti there pretty well.
Yeah, it was one of the two closest guys on track there at that point through that middle section, like I said. But the top 6 right now are all within a second. You see there, Paul Boyle is the back of this group of 6, and We also should check this moment here. This is how Paul Boyle ended up in sixth. Vahil making that move, as we see a lot of other stuff happening in front. Vahil making that move into the Lacombe chicane on that last lap.
Yep, and Richard Curry gets the job done on Daniel Barnett, so up a spot and can now go try to chase Paletti down.
Yeah, Vahil trying to get Barnett as well, but Barnett possibly fighting back here on Curry. Lockup by one of the drivers. Collision.
Garcia goes wide.
Yeah, just trying to avoid that mess, I believe.
That might be a slowdown.
Oh, and what's he doing getting to the grass?
Yeah, I think he was letting Paul go. He had a little bit of a slowdown he had to bleed off there, unfortunately. So he's got to make up that spot again that he just had gained.
Barnett, 2/10, has the run on Richard Curry in front. Richard Curry a little bit left out to dry right now, as he's got a pretty big gap to Nicholas Paletti in front. Let's see what happens. Barnett on the outside, nose and nose. Oh, that was really close between the two. These two drivers come very close to each other a couple times over this last lap. Zach Nurnberger, by the way, has come in for his pit stop. Should be on strategy, given that it's a shorter sprint race here, but just trying something a little bit different and seeing if that undercut works out for him.
It seemed to work for him these last few races, so I'll be excited to see what that clean racetrack brings him here. So we'll see where he ends up.
Paul Boyle, a lot of pace here in the middle of this track. Nowhere to go, however. He's going to have to wait for a good opportunity if he wants to try to make a move on Barnett.
Yeah, right now the two fastest cars just pulling away from the field. Everyone was within a second last lap, but now 2 seconds back to third place on Paletti. So those two, Watson and Paletti, have just kind of left the field behind.
Yeah, this is Paletti here. He has now got it down to just a few tenths between these guys for the lead. So Daniel Barnett led a few laps. Tony Watson's now led a couple of his own, but it just seems like it's maybe now that already Paletti's going to try to get that lead.
I don't
Let's
want
see
to
if
do
Paletti
something stupid
goes on the
here.
inside.
When you're this much quicker, hopefully he can get the job done clean. It's going to be close. Ooh.
Oh, not able to make it work, at least through both parts of the track. And
Boyle
yeah,
almost loses it there. Boyle
gave
coming in.
Gave plenty of room to Tony Watson there. Tony Watson taking that outside that turns into the inside, and a great defense for him as he keeps his car going straight. Paletti is going to have plenty of more opportunities and didn't throw away anything too bad there.
No, that was wise to not push it any further. Lost a little bit of time. Brings Richard Curry back in a little bit. But we see quite a few guys pitting. Daniel Barnett, Paul Boyle, both coming in.
Yeah, Newbie also in the pit stop, so this is all on strategy for these guys. Nurnberger is ahead of all those guys who have pit now, with the exception of Paul Boyle. So he's ahead of Berquist, Barnett, and Tony Watson losing the lead to Nicholas Paletti there.
Oh,
Mistake right before Malmedy loses the spot, and now Richard Curry brought into this conversation as well. Watson's still close enough to fight, but has lost that lead to Paletti.
Paletti locks up. Tony Watson gets a little bit of a advantage there. We'll see if he can hold on.
Yeah, it looks like he's going to have to worry more about Richard Curry behind, I think. But let's check this move again that Paletti made on Tony Watson.
Oh,
great avoidance.
Save on both of their parts.
Is obviously losing some safety points there, but I think that's probably worth it given the alternative being in the wall there.
Yeah, sometimes you just got to cut your losses. It's really hard to get a 0x here, and yeah, no one's getting any in this race. Closest is Boyle and Paletti at 1. So
Richard Curry just a couple tenths back on Tony Watson. Again, we have not seen any moves made successfully here in Blanchemont, outside or inside. He's going to have to wait and try to nail it into the bus stop, which we've seen plenty of passes. He's going to go to the inside,
overspeed,
just like we expect. Tony Watson's done well on the outside so far. Did well with Nicholas Paletti. Deeper for Richard Curry, and a spin.
Oh, you hate to see that. Both of those guys getting quite a bit of damage from that. Richard will probably come in here.
Yeah, luckily Tony Watson not having already made his stop, but Richard Curry there using that, taking that opportunity to go in there. I mean, it's some damage to the front left. I don't think it's going to be too much of an issue for Tony to take it back around one more lap. But that is a shame there. Curry quite deep on the brakes, and I think that given how fast we saw him go into that corner, I think it just had to happen, really.
Yeah, the car just doesn't quite have enough downforce to stick it through there, unfortunately for him. But as we see, Adrian Garcia Vigil is up to second now. So let's see if he's got anything to challenge for Paletti. Paletti, that was pretty much the only driver Paletti did not deal with in the first race. So we'll see what happens here.
Vigil here, a couple seconds. That was a little, right as we go on board there, a little stressful. Going pretty wide, going a little bit deep in Brussels, but the tires are not at their happiest at this point, and both these drivers not having made their stop yet, so free to do it whenever they want. It'd be interesting to see if either of them use it tactically, because they can go a good amount farther if they want.
Yeah, of note, with Richard Curry pitting there, came out ahead of Nuremberger, so Nuremberger hasn't made up quite enough time with his undercut.
Yeah, I think he maybe was hoping that the drivers would try to push it out a little bit longer as well, and have a longer undercut. We saw actually 3 drivers come in the lap right after him, so a little bit of spread of strategy kind of all across the board, but still a good few guys here at the front who have not made one at all.
Yeah, and I think Paletti might be eating his words a little. I know last week he said in his interview that he hates Spa and is not very good at this track, but he's kind of proving everyone wrong here tonight.
Cubey trying to catch up to Tony Watson. Again, Tony Watson has that damage. It was going to happen eventually this lap. Watson, I'm almost certain we'll see come into the pits here, and just try not to lose as much time as possible.
It got a little sketchy there. He was hating on. That was good. Here he comes into the pits making a wise call here. He could still be on for a podium here, so wise call to come in. And
so we'll interestingly see where that comes out in comparison to Richard Curry as well, because Curry was able to immediately come into the pits. Watson didn't really have that option, and we'll see what happens between these two as he's now on in the pit lane and about to hit pit exit.
Yeah, and Paletti just ran the fastest lap of the race at 2:11.8, so he's turned on the afterburners now.
Richard Curry looks like he is going to be behind, sort of behind Tony Watson, but he's going to have a huge run here as Watson's just trying to get up to speed coming out of the pits.
Looks like they'll just resume their battle here that they had already started. So I think we'll see Richard Curry putting a move here at the end of this straight.
It looked like a little bit of off track there for Tony Watson potentially as well on that left side. It's easy to go too far left actually in that Radeon chicane. Richard Curry on the inside, deeper on the brakes again. See if he gets a stop this time. He does. Tony Watson trying to make a cutback, not going to work.
Yeah, that was much better than the first one. Good job to both of them. That was good racing there.
Yeah, Curry's also got his tires more in the window. Watson just coming out of the pits was just trying to get up to speed, and also I don't know if he took tires, but even if he didn't, the tires would have cooled down some during that stop. So Curry just his car in a little bit more of an optimal state.
Absolutely. Yeah, tire temp in these cars is incredibly important compared to what it is in E4A with the GT3s. So
see that move again Richard Curry made on Tony Watson into the Lacombe chicane. Deep on the brakes, no lockup, smoothly controlled.
Looks like Adrian cutting into Paletti's lead, maybe just a tad bit this lap. We'll see when they come across the line if that gap has changed. Oh, yeah.
Paletti there, putting in a purple lap at 2:11.8. Vigil at 2:11.5, but not purple because he must have discounted that lap in some way.
Yeah, but man, if he can put more of those in, that is easily the quickest laps of the night. If he can get one of those clean. Definitely cut in about 3/10 into Paletti's lead here. He's going to need a few more of those.
Yeah, it's just these two up at the front. You can see Cubey quite alone. He's 10 seconds back from second, 10 seconds ahead of fourth, although he has not made that stop, and Paul Boyle there in fourth has. So it does make things a little bit more interesting. But as it is currently, not having to deal with a lot, but it's just the top 3 drivers in the overall standings that have not made their pit stop yet.
And what was the pit lane time for this race for some of the drivers that have pitted? I'm just curious because Paul Boyle is 21 seconds back right now. Just wondering how close it will be between him and Paletti when Paletti comes back out.
Well, see, I have the pit lane time, but I don't have the pit loss time. So, like, comparing it to what it would take on the track, the pit lane time, at least in the feature, was around 35 seconds.
Okay.
But that doesn't take into account how long the track outside of that would take. I wish I had that.
Gotcha. So yeah, maybe not as close as what I'm thinking then, but Boyle potentially putting himself in contention for maybe a P2 here. So we'll see.
Yeah, at one point was at the back of that really tight group up there at the front in 6th, and now already up to 4th with those 3 guys in front of him having to pit. So should finish higher than that. At the very least, he should be able to get Steve Cubey there. Not sure, like you said, with that 22nd or so. I think that he probably stays behind Paletti and Vihil if he pits now. But still a lot to happen in this race. We are past halfway. We're on lap 9 of 16. But see who has the pace at this point in the race.
Yeah, I think one big factor in that is he had clean racetrack. And Curry and Watson came together. That cost them quite a bit of time. And I think that's why Boyle was able to just overtake both of them. So kudos to him for pitting a lap earlier than everyone else. As we see Paletti puts in another stormer, a 2:11.7.
Yeah, Vihil wide there in that final corner, probably picking up an off track and not helping his pace as Paletti able to slightly improve his time from the previous lap. All 3 of those guys at the top still not coming in. And I think that we kind of expect, well, I mean, they didn't, the 22 lap feature, I don't remember how long the longest person took. It was probably 12 or 13 laps, I imagine. So probably in a few laps time is when we'll see these guys necessarily have to come in, but they haven't come in due to strategy yet.
I mean, maybe Paletti's got some fairy dust or something, and he can make it all 16 laps. I mean, if anyone's going to make it on field in this season, it's going to be him. But it seems like a very tough ask to save that many laps at this big of a racetrack.
Yeah, you have to. They did that. That was more of a possibility in the first couple rounds, as of the previous round, which obviously you were absent for. We did drop the fuel down a little bit more, enough that I think it actually is impossible to go the sprint race without pitting. It was already close. Oh, Tony Watson looking like that was some heavy slip angle there coming into Malmedy, able to keep the car pointing straight at least.
Hey, it looks like he's in a drift car. That was really cool to watch. He's definitely closing in on Richard Curry here. He's got some really strong pace. Him and Richard have kind of been trading lap times the last few laps, so see if he gets another shot at him. And Nürnberger back there as well has been inching into this battle.
Yeah, all these guys haven't already made their pit stop, so this is the position on track for him, and it would be interesting to see how this shakes out. Nürnberger has seemed to catch up a little bit, but none of these guys really close enough to I guess, really be threatening each other yet into any of these passing opportunities, any of these hard braking zones. It's just that they're kind of there.
Yeah, that's the thing. Wow, yeah, Paletti, I don't know what he did through that last sector, but maybe it was Adrian not having a great sector. He pulled another 4/10 on Paletti through, or Paletti pulled another 4/10 on him through there. So the gap continued.
Yeah, that was actually a little bit of a slow lap for Paletti, but it was a little bit slower further for Vihil there.
Exactly, yeah. And we see Boyle come across 2:12.7, so not making any inroads really on the guys in front of him.
Yeah, at least the top two, of course. He is catching up to Cubey, but given that gap, he is going to get that spot through the pit stop. So really, Cubey's not the driver that he's worrying about. Richard Curry there putting in a personal best on the track so far, and Newby there into the 11s as well with a 2:11.8. He's 4 seconds back from Nürnberger, these three that we're looking at right now, but if he continues to put in pace like that, and just with a couple mistakes in front, he really could put himself in this conversation.
Yeah, it's a what could have been kind of race for Newby. Definitely has the pace, just didn't have a few things go his way in this, unfortunately.
Yeah, we've had a few guys obviously lose some positions, but that's to be expected in a reverse grid kind of situation. Obviously, the idea is that the guy who won the previous race has to work his way through the field, so he's supposed to pass everybody. I do think that we maybe thought it would take Paletti a little bit longer than it did, but he was able to get up, 4 or 5 positions there at the very start, and is starting to pull away some more from Vahil as that gap is now it's approaching 3.5 seconds.
We might have to check to see if Doge Squad Racing has breached the cost cap, because that car has just been unstoppable these last few races.
Yeah, he has dominated the field. Not a lot of people able to really put any sort of competition to him. Surprisingly, only his second pole position, which that's actually a surprise to me. But it should be another event win here for him, and a 7th heat win.
And he's still pushing too. I mean, last lap he ran a 2:11.7, and Vahil trying to answer, can't quite answer, 2:11.9. So,
yeah, personal best for Vahil, but yeah, like I said, still a couple tenths slower. The pit stop can still be a big mix up for this, though. It's really easy to gain and lose time on a pit stop that maybe doesn't have anything to do with just being classically fast on the racetrack. So Paletti still has that to contend with and to make sure to not make any errors with. But other than that, it looks like his command on the track has been pretty strong.
Yeah, and it seems like that gap ebbs and flows a little bit with Adrian, but by the end of the lap, it's normally a net gain for him. So I just think Paletti probably taking it easy at certain parts of the. Oh, we see Adrian go off. Oh, that's unfortunate. Oh man, and that's
a lot of dust on those tires.
Yeah, that's gonna put Paul Boyle in the range now for a P2 here. So we'll see.
Yeah, it's not enough for Steve Cubet to catch up, but like you said, through that virtual race that we're having with Paul Boyle right now, having already made his pit stop, I would agree that I think that probably puts Paul in the virtual second. We'll see how that pans out because he still has to make that stop, but it should be coming up soon. So was pushing really hard to try to catch Paletti. Unfortunately, was just starting to lose grasp. And let's see what that incident was here.
Thankfully, not a race ender. Just goes a little wider.
Down into Bruxelles, having that understeer. There's not a single car out there that doesn't get understeer in Bruxelles, so understandable reaction.
And thankfully, the car was able to get stopped and not just keep sliding into that wall there. That could have been really, really, really bad for him, considering his first race didn't go to his plan.
And there we go. I thought that might be what was going to happen. Nicholas Paletti coming into the pits. So let's see if there's any errors here or if this is a clean pit stop for him. That's really all he needs now for this race, as his closest competitor there with a minor mistake kind of taking him out of it now with 4 laps to go.
Yep, here they both come. And here comes Cubet as well. So all 3 of the top coming in, and we'll see where Boyle cycles around. Boyle is on the front stretch right now. He's actually a lot closer to Paletti than I thought he was going to be.
Paletti now exiting the pit lane. Boyle has made his way past both Steve Cubet and Adrian Vahil, and it does look like that before that incident that Vahil probably would have stayed ahead, and unfortunately now having lost that, we'll see if he's able to climb back up and get that spot. We see Steve Cubet
Richard
as
Curry
it is
right
in
on
4th.
him.
Yeah, it's going to be tough for Cubet to do much as he comes out of the pits. Going to have a slower run, so good move for Curry to take advantage when he could. But Cubet right behind him still, and Tony Watson involved.
Yeah, this is getting good now. We got 3 cars nose to tail. Who's going to make a move? I think we might not see anything here, but we might in the next few corners. Oh, it's Cubet, puts a move, but has to back out of it.
Yeah, not close enough to make anything happen. Maybe just trying to get some clean air and avoid slamming into the back of the guy in front of him. All of this for the battle for 3rd place.
I think fourth place. Yeah, I was going to say this is for 4th, but if anything happens up ahead, this is for the last podium spot. So these guys racing their hearts out right now and racing for points, because these points are all really close between these drivers. So.
Yeah, no surprise, Zach Nurnberger being brought into this after all 3 of those drivers really kind of slowing down into the Lacombe chicane. And now Zach Nurnberger less than a second to Tony Watson in front. Nurnberger trying to get that B-class win over Watson in this race. Two of these guys in A class and two of these guys in B class.
Yeah, and I think if they finish like this now, I think Nürnberger is going to get the overall. So, with his 5th place in the first race and Tony 6th. So, we'll see how that pans out.
Yeah, the position's a little bit more valuable in the first race, so getting that performance in the feature is really important. Still some points to put on top here in the sprint, but the feature's where the primary chunk of points comes from. Cube not able to make anything happen yet, but it looked real strong on the brakes there. Tony Watson as well. I wonder if Richard Curry maybe struggling some with tire temperatures.
He might be. I think he was one of the first to pit, but I'll tell you, Cube is really putting it on the brakes.
Tony Watson trying to set
goes.
up a nice move. Had a better exit through turn 1. They're going to be side by side down into Eau Rouge. Who is going to yield? Is Tony Watson going to back out of this, or is he going to take this side by side? Let's watch for Nürnberger. He's going to back out of it just enough to try to make that move
That's gonna fall right
down
into
the straight.
Nürnberger's hands. He's going to have a huge run here on Tony.
And you can see it. You can see it precipitating right now, trying to choose which way to go. Tony Watson himself trying to choose which way to go around Steve Cube.
3 wide.
About to go 3 wide into the Lacombe chicane. Tony Watson ahead of Steve Cube. Zach Nürnberger ahead of Steve Cube.
2-for-1 special. Tony Watson. That was incredible. Under the brakes there. That was amazing. He just went so much deeper.
Down into Bruxelles now. A lockup from Tony Watson ahead, but just the slightest, and it was on that front right, so not a lot of load on that. Shouldn't do too much to the tire wear, but he is trying to get up there into 4th place as he continues his charge. Both of these guys in B class that we're watching who just made up a spot, Nürnberger and Watson.
Yeah, and Tony, man, him and Richard were racing really hard at the beginning of this race. I'll be curious to see if Tony could get back up to him, because they were both very competitive, just unfortunately had that incident.
Here they were 3 wide into the Lacombe chicane. Tony Watson really deep on the brakes, and then Cube still occupied on the inside by Zach Nürnberger. A little bit of a lockup there for Watson as well on that apex, but makes it through okay.
Yeah, and Watson closing the gap ever so slightly to Curry here as they get ready to come across the line and take 2 to go. He could still have a shot at this.
Poletti crossing the line right now with that penultimate lap about to start. Lap 15 starting. Steve Cube all over the back of Nürnberger. Nürnberger taking a defensive line on the inside. Cube around the outside potentially. Gets it slowed down. Both drivers. Oh, and a spin by Nürnberger. And Tony Watson spinning as well.
Wow. And here comes
Nürnberger losing it on the outside, and just ahead of them, Tony Watson himself losing it. Neither car really probably picked up any damage, but now Watson losing a spot to Newbie. No, he's able to defend it for now at least, but those tires are not going to be treating him well.
Yeah, those tires are begging for mercy right now. They're just like, come on, man. But, wow. Yeah, that was an eventful chicane there. Let's see what happened. It looks like Tony...
Keep one eye on Watson and one eye on Nürnberger back there.
He just loops it, and then I think that's netcode again between Cube and Nürnberger.
Yeah, if it wasn't, it was the precipitation of what was about to be a similar incident, but it looks like he caught it pretty quickly.
Yeah, it's up driving
but
there.
yeah, Nürnberger not losing nearly as much in that incident as Watson did. Watson 2.5 seconds back from Nürnberger now. But that does leave Cube pretty comfortably there in 5th with a couple seconds to go in front of him to Curry in 4th.
Yeah, not to make things too exciting, but Boyle was a second faster than Poletti last lap. If he had a few more laps, I'm wondering what he could have done.
Yeah, you have to, we still really didn't get to see Poletti stressed and pushed really hard in this race. We don't know how much he really has in the tank, but he is doing well up at the front regardless. And yeah, that gap is coming down, but Poletti's making his way now through Blanchimont, and with the white flag coming up, it's going to be a pretty Herculean effort for Paul Boyle to make that up. Very wide for Tony Watson there, continuing to pick up some off tracks here in these last couple laps.
Oh, and Newbie's going to have the run on the outside here. So
Tony Watson pinned on the inside.
Yeah, Tony will have to regroup and maybe try to get him back on the straight, the Lacombe straight.
So there we go. Newbie has made that move. Watson trying to get him back, but just Newbie able to pin him on the inside of those corners there. Almost a death sentence through that section. Paul Boyle putting in the fastest lap of the race with a 2:11.7, so that pace is no joke.
Yeah,
But he has 3.5 seconds ahead.
he took a whole.
Oh, and a spin by Watson again, and a pin for Newbie.
Okay, well,
So
that's
Watson
what
may
I
be
do.
okay.
Wow.
Paletti has that white flag. No stress from behind. 3.5 seconds.
Yeah, Boyle took another second out last lap, so I think Boyle's just going to be kicking himself and wishing he had a little bit more time. He didn't necessarily get up to speed right away, but man, ever since he had his pit stop, he's just been in a whole nother zip code.
Yeah, has had really strong pace out in the open, clean air, and just a shame we didn't really get to see him battle too much. Of course, Paletti did pass Boyle for position earlier in the race.
Yeah, he did. That is a good point, actually. Everything else kind of status quo right now. No really close gaps as we watch Paletti take these last few corners here. Just needs to be cautious. Has only one incident. Wants to keep it under that next threshold.
Yeah, earning as much points as he can. Tony Watson just had an in, so let's check on it real quick.
Oh, man. That's a big one.
See-
See him get a little loose through there, and he just kills the front.
Yeah, we've seen a couple incidents in that section already. We saw it in the feature race. That's what brought out the red flag, was a crash just like that. And unfortunately, late in this race, he loses that spot. But, I mean, Newbie stayed in it, but Kevin Burke was out of this race as well. So he should stay there in 8th, actually.
Yeah.
Nicholas Paletti baked his way through Blanchimont. The last fast turn of this track, now coming into the bus stop chicane to finish out this circuit to get a 7th win, 7th heat win on the season, and a 3rd event win. He is our came in as our our championship leader, and will pull out even more of a lead. Nicholas Paletti, victor here in Spa with a purple 2:11.3 to cap it all off. Paul Boyle coming in behind him there in 2nd place. Very strong finish for him. The driver trying to get some more points here in the mid-season. Vahil coming in 3rd with Richard Curry in 4th, close behind Steve Cubey in 5th. And Zach Nurnberger 6th, first for the B-Class drivers, and is our B-Class champion for the event. Christopher Newby, the only other driver still on the track, came into the pits. Maybe he was a little bit short on fuel, and will be finishing this race here in 7th, with every other driver either not taking the start or unable to finish this race. A lot of attrition here tonight.
Yeah, real bummer. When you have less cars on the track, there's obviously less battles to watch. So hopefully next week we'll see a couple more drivers out there.
And next week, or next race, Jean Vert will be a good challenge for these guys. But this was quite a challenge for him tonight at this track. So Nicholas Paletti, double winner, and Zach Nurnberger, winner for our B class. So strong showings by both of those guys. And in a little bit, we'll be able to hear from a couple of them.
Oh, and we see some extracurricular Doge Squad activity there. Don't know what's going on there. I guess some burnouts.
A little bit of celebration for Paul Boyle, who now picks up his 4th podium on the season, I believe. I don't think that he got one in the first race. So
No, he got 4th in the first race, but this was probably one of his most complete races so far this season. Really good, solid 4th and 2nd here tonight, and could take some momentum into Zandvoort.
for sure. So do we have anybody ready to talk to in our booth? Nobody's waiting yet, so we'll give them a couple more minutes. We'll go over the official results here for this sprint race. So, disappearing on me. There we go. Feature results. Sprint results. The second race, sprint results. Nicholas Paletti coming home winner again by a 3.8 second gap to Paul Boyle behind. Adrian Vahil coming in 3rd with Richard Curry 4th and Steve Cubey 5th. Zach Nurnberger finishes in 6th as the first of the B-Class drivers, with Newbie in 7th. And Watson, Berquist, Barnett, Elijah Craig, Real, and Huber all either not starting or also not finishing this race.
Yeah, waiting to see if we can talk to either Nick or Zach here get their perspectives on tonight's race. And all right, looks like we have Nick. Let's bring him in here. Hey, Nick, you got a copy?
Hello, I gotcha.
All right, so talk us through it. Kind of a repeat of last week at Monza. You win the first race, and then you have to come from all the way back in 10th and do it again. Talk us through how it was coming through the field here tonight.
Oh, that first lap was a lot of fun. that first lap was a lot of fun. I had a feeling that if I was gonna get around people, it would have to be there because I got a good jump off the line, and then I probably drove a little bit more aggressively than I normally would, because it would have been definitely on me if I would have caused an incident. But there were a few close calls, but it was just a lot of fun, kind of breaking a little bit deeper because everyone was a little less confident in a few spots. But yeah, that first lap was a lot of fun, and then it was just kind of waiting as the next few laps went on.
In that feature that you had, it was a pretty dominant win, but pretty far into the race, you still were left with 0 incident points. And despite having that 10-second lead, you picked up a couple off tracks at the end. You know what happened there? I
decided I wanted to try to do a faster lap. And then I just picked up an incident point. Like I shouldn't have, but it is what it is. Like, I don't think those points are gonna matter too much, but I'm okay for a 2x and then a 1x for this track because usually I'm well into like double digits when it comes to incident points here.
Well, so as we get ready for the next race at Zandvoort, talk about your prospects there and your championship lead continuing to grow with tonight's performance.
I've never raced there. So, I mean, I've raced on the new one in like some arcadey games, but I've never raced there. I don't even know if I own the track yet. So we'll see how that goes.
All right, Nick.
Well, congratulations, Nick, on that double win. 7 wins of 8 heats in this season. Couldn't have possibly any more momentum, I think, going forward.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, and it's a real shame we had some connection issues in the feature race because Ken was fast, Adrian was fast, and I know both of them had some connectivity issues. So hopefully, in 2 weeks' time, they'll be able to come back with some hopefully better connection because those two were definitely fast, and it was fun battling with Adrian in the second race.
Well, you have a good night, Nick. We will look forward to possibly hearing from you maybe next week in Ypres and maybe a couple weeks from now here at Zandvoort.
All right. Yep. You guys have a good night.
Have a good night. And I do not see our B-class champion tonight in Zach Nuremberger. I wouldn't be surprised to hear from him again sometime in the future as he's continuing to pull that lead for that B-class championship. So. Again, great race that we had here today. As mentioned, if you're here for Open Wheel for Amateurs, our next race is in a couple weeks at Circuit Zandvoort, where we will be running the Dutch Grand Prix, and it'll be a strong challenge for these guys. If you're here for all the racing, Ypres next week at Watkins Glen, a historic racetrack, both for the league and real life, should be another firecracker of a race. So that is us signing off here at Pony Express, and everyone have a good night.